Blog Talk Radio.
You are now tuned into the Power of the P presenting Love and Hip Hop.
After the show, it's the after party then. After the show, it's the after party then.
How could it be? Little me had the power to be the. How could it be? Little me had the power to be the. How could it be? Little me had the power to be the best beat in the league, yeah, inevitably. But could it be? Little me, you was heckling me. Now it's monotony when it regularly. I kept
The Power of the P.
Welcome to the Power of the P presents Love and Hip Hop, the After Party. This is where the live conversation happens after the show. Week to week, you can tune into the Power of the P on Blog Talk Radio. We want to hear your thoughts and your opinions on the women of love and hip hop. I am Princess, and joining me is Chris Kazi Roll, creator, founder of Together Apart Amongst Many Things, balancing our conversation with the testosterone perspective. So, Kazi, what is? What's going on?
I'm great. Very interesting watching this show because as a man, you're always trying to understand women, you know what I'm saying? And because this show is kind of like around talking about us men, it's very interesting to listen to the show now. Like, you know, because they have other shows and stuff like that, but being from hip-hop and watching this particular show has been very, very interesting.
So I'm going to bring in Lady L as well. Lady L.
Hey.
Hey, what's your thoughts on tonight's show?
Well, you know, I can't help but feel for these ladies. You know, I feel like no one is really getting what they truly want. And part of it is that they're looking to someone else for their happiness. And maybe, you know, it's time to start looking inward. I really felt bad for Emily, you know, that final scene. You know, it was heart-wrenching because, you know, I think what Olivia said to her, you know, is true. When someone loves you, they don't hide you, you know, and so what does that all mean? And I think, you know, they're caught up in maybe the facade and not really, you know, peeling back the layers and looking at the realities of the relationship. So
okay. So I want to bring someone onto the show tonight who could probably give us a little bit more insight on this conversation. She is the creator and executive producer of Love and Hip Hop, Ms. Mona Scott Young. I want to welcome her to the Power of the P. Hi, Mona. Here. Hi, Mona. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. So, the finale of Love and Hip Hop.
Yes.
Well, first, you know, what was your idea when thinking about bringing these ladies together to do the show? Like, what was the initial thought? What was the goal when you said, all right, I'm going to get this woman, in on this show, and we're going to create Love and Hip Hop? What was your thought?
The initial thought was just really providing a forum for these very discussions that, you know, are being had right now, for giving these ladies an opportunity to, through their, you know, connection in the world and their connection to these men that have brought them into the world, give them a platform to kind of leverage to accomplish whatever it is that they wanted to accomplish beyond that, and also to give them a voice in a sense. I think when you think about, you know, relationships and love, you don't really see enough of that reflected within that demographic and in our community. I think that this is an area of, you know, celebrity lives in hip-hop that you don't really get any insight to. Everybody's always very, very familiar with, you know, the jump-offs, the chicks that they meet at the clubs, the ones that are, you know, on their arms front and center at the parties, but nobody ever knows what's going on behind the scenes. And it was really to give these women a voice and to give them an opportunity, which, you know, I think is what they wanted. You know, that was a big part of the dialogue that we had going into this. Like, this isn't going to be easy. You're putting yourself out there. People are going to criticize. They're going to have their opinions. They're going to pass judgment. Are you, you know, prepared to, one, deal with that, and two, kind of play out your private lives in a very public way? And they all seemed like they, you know, were ready for everything that came with it. So I'm really proud of them.
Well, what has been the response?
From the ladies?
No, we know our personal response from, you know, just watching the show, and we love it. What has been the response out there in the world? since been put
Oh, I mean, the feedback has been phenomenal. Everyone that I've come in contact with, has always said to me, I really enjoyed the show. I think you guys did a great job showing a real slice of life. It doesn't feel heavily, produced, that we don't feel like they're being forced to do and say these things. And that was a very important thing for us. It was like, listen, these are your lives. I can't dictate or orchestrate. You guys have got to give us the very real things that are going on right now, and we, of course, will create scenarios for it to play out. But these are your lives. These are your circumstances. And the feedback, I think people have been very receptive. I think they, feel the genuine, kind of tone that the show has, and I think people appreciate that because on a lot of these kinds of shows you don't have that. And so I think overwhelmingly the feedback has been great. I think everyone's appreciated how honest the girls have been and how they haven't tried to present this facade of perfection, and they've allowed themselves to be vulnerable, and they've let us, see their weaknesses and that things aren't all perfect and pretty, So I overall the feedback on that has been great. And I think the girls, too, when we got towards the end of shooting, what I heard from them all, which I really appreciated, was that this was a process that they were happy they had engaged in. With all the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the ugly, at the end of the day, they all felt like, it was therapeutic. It was cathartic. They were happy that they had engaged in the process. I think for some of them, like Emily, it helped them see things more clearly, without anybody saying, hey, this is what you need to be doing. It was kind of a moment of self-realization. So I think overall...
That's what stood out to us, too, when she was on the show. She was on, when was that, like the first week, right, Princess?
The second week.
Oh, the second week, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was very, very adamant about how, like you said, therapeutic this show, just being a part of the show was for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and she said she had grown. She had grown from the experience. So.
Yeah.
Yes, and for me, that was, very important. It's like as long as you guys all walk away from this with something that you feel that has benefited you, whether it is being number 8 on iTunes, which I heard, Olivia's December was, or whether it was for doors, opening for you with other opportunities, as is the case with Samaya. Chrissy, taking a step in her life and trying to figure out what she wants to do. Is it spending the rest of her life with Jim or whatever that may be? And for, Emily, like, taking stock of her life and making a decision about whether or not she was happy, because that's what I always said to her. Listen, if you're happy, screw what the world thinks, but it's really about how you feel and are you happy.
How did you go about choosing the cast members?
The show itself was an evolution of sorts. I mean, it started out as a show about Jim Jones, and, when we shot that pilot, Jim was in a very different place. He had been going through some things, and it became like the anti-reality show because he, kept breaking the fourth wall and getting the cameras out of his face. And, although that was interesting enough and it got us to pilot, when we shot the pilot, Chrissy and Nancy were really breakout, standout characters. And at the time, there were all these other ensemble cast shows, and the VH1 audience had changed. And so the idea was that, Jim was busy trying to get his album done and moving around, and we'd have some access, but it wasn't going to be the Jim Jones show as much anymore because also the VH1 audience was now more female-focused. And wouldn't it be great to, surround Chrissy and Nancy and with some other women and create our own ensemble based in this world? Because I thought her story was interesting. Here's a woman who had been with this guy for all of these years. She supported him. She was there when there really was nothing and felt, she's a very strong woman. She felt like she was a very integral part of building out his business and his brand. But she felt like she had no sense of security in any of that. She's like, I've been here all these years. I know I was here when there wasn't a pot to piss in, but really, what do I have? Because if tomorrow we go our separate ways, end of story.
That's what I've been saying. That's exactly what I've been saying.
That's been a big
40-year-old woman, yeah. There's no security there. I really feel
that's been a big convo on this show because being the lone male on this show, I've been trying to decipher what is not being said on the show, like from the guy's perspective, and they've been taking my head off basically. On the show.
Oh, come on, come on.
There's a very distinct difference between what she was expressing and this whole notion that I've heard time and time again about people going, well, go find your own career, and why are you trying to glom onto him? And listen, there's, very different situations there. Being someone who's just trying to live off someone else's fame is very different from having been the support system, the backbone for somebody as they built what they were building, and you being, entitled to some level of participation because of the sacrifices you made and your involvement and your contributions to where they are today.
And legally, he has none, and legally there are none. There is no security for her, legally.
There is none if you're not married, but it doesn't discount she contributed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what about the fact that maybe he doesn't want to share that particular he doesn't want to walk down the aisle, but maybe they could work out a contractual agreement that just a business situation aside from that.
Well, I mean, listen, I think you're talking about affairs of the heart and not the boardroom right now. I'm sure that her investment in her man was because this is who she loves and who she wants to spend her life with, and she wanted to be a contributing member of building something for the two of them. I seriously doubt she went into this looking for a contract that would entitle her to a percentage of earnings, but I also think that that's why she's perfectly justified in saying, what are we doing here? Give me some, idea of where your head is so I can make an informed decision. This is...
Gotcha.
Did you feel like during the show that the women come to you and lean on you or ask you for advice at all, off the camera?
We had so many discussions. I mean, a lot of the subjects that we covered were so sensitive, and of course it would spill over into after. You know what, guys? I'm on my cell phone, so it keeps muting, so I apologize if I'm going in and out. But what I was saying is that, of course, they were very personal conversations. I tried as much as I could to not influence their train of thought and what they were thinking because I didn't want that to play into the reality of their lives and what they would do, normally. But absolutely, there were tons of discussions because, again, we dealt with very sensitive, subject matter, and a lot of times they would walk away feeling, not so great about where they were in their lives or something that was going on in their lives, and the idea that, the whole world would soon know this and see this, sometimes factored in as well. But, again, that's why I have to constantly come in and applaud them because not everyone, has the guts to stand up there and say, this is who I am, this is my life, and I'm not apologetic. This is it.
Very courageous. Very courageous.
Being a OG veteran of the music industry and who came up and had huge success in a male dominated industry, do you feel like a level of duty to want to, take care of these, the young women coming up in the industry trying to find their way?
It's funny you say that. Absolutely. I mean, for me, that was part of the genesis of all of this as well. It very closely mirrored my trajectory, coming into the hip-hop game and using that as a platform and navigating my way through it and knowing how difficult it is. To make it out there and make your mark and gain traction and ultimately be successful. It definitely wasn't easy, but to, the theme of love and hip-hop, I was very fortunate, very blessed in that, I got into a relationship with someone who was extremely supportive, who, understood me, understood where I was trying to go, and was good for me in a number of ways, not just because of the support system that was provided, but also when I needed to really check myself and when I needed to, see things differently so that I could ultimately be a better person, even when I didn't realize that that's what I needed at the time. So, my hope, of course, is that everyone kind of comes to that point and these ladies, get to the point where they can look at their lives and really see a reflection of what they wanted to be. And so I did feel a certain obligation to kind of provide an environment to help them do that and get to that place.
Yeah. Love it.
So I want to ask, so we noticed through from the beginning of the show that Fab wasn't really present in, the show, and the episode before this one, we saw that he didn't show up for the photo shoot with the family because, he didn't want the cameras involved. Like, what was that conversation? Did you guys approach him? Did he just want to just say flat out, no, I don't want any participation, or is this a sign of what's happening with Emily?
Yeah, it's so funny because so many people I see also like, does she even know Fab? Does he even know she exists? Absolutely. Fab was just very, very clear from the beginning, that he did not want to do the show. He felt like his private life, he wanted to keep it private. And although Emily felt like this is something that she wanted to do, it wasn't anything that he ever, signed up for, agreed to do. We hope during the course that, of course, he would say, listen, what do I have to hide, or what am I holding back for? If this is going to make her happy, I might as well do this, because she was very adamant about wanting to do the show and wanting to deal with a lot of the things head on that had been, that she had heard over the course of the years. That wasn't supposed to be her entire storyline. I mean, there's so much going on with Emily. She's, a talented young lady. She's building her styling business. But I think she, that became such a focal point for where she was in her life that we really ended up just following that storyline with her. But listen, Fab was on the phone with her. Fab was very much on the periphery. He chose not to be on the show, but it isn't like she's delusional and Fab doesn't really exist in her life,
But it was a wonderful balance to bring Mashonda into the mix. I think for her, she was sort of like, the polar opposite of Emily in that she, was emancipated from this situation and was really able. I mean, I loved everything. Every time she was on, I loved it because I felt like she was the voice of wisdom, and she was, in some ways, all of their sort of worst nightmare.
Well,
and she was
it's so
able
funny
to say,
that.
I survived,
Yeah, when you talk how all the women got chosen, they were very organic connections. It wasn't like we took a bunch of random women and said, here, we're putting you together, be friends. They all had like not even a 6 degree, like a 2 degree of separation from each other. Even Samaya coming into town the very first meeting, she says, yeah, I'm supposed to be hooking up with Jim Jones. We were like, oh, darn, we couldn't have, made this up if we tried,
Wow.
But with Mashonda, she and Emily were very, very good friends, and in all of our discussions with the two of them, she would say, I'm like a cautionary tale. I want Emily to look at my life and to realize, like, you can't put all those eggs in one basket. You can't spend years and years and years if it isn't what it's supposed to be, if it isn't what you need it to be, if it isn't what you want it to be. Nobody's saying, hey, leave your man, because who the hell are we to pass judgment and to give you, that kind of life-altering advice. It was more like, take a look at me, and I had the ring, and I had the marriage, and I had, and look at where I am now. So she definitely was like a cautionary tale, not just for the women on the show, but for women who kind of look at the life.
Yeah, absolutely, for all women. I loved it. I loved everything she had to say, because there's a lot of, we wondered about her. Like, even Princess was talking about how Alicia Keys, songs are always on the radio and just on the tape. Like, how is she doing? And she has emerged, and she's doing very well and, is able to pass on, that to other women. And I really love that. I really, really love that.
Yeah.
So,
but Shonda's come through, a lot of growth, and it was extremely, it just made me proud to see the way she handled everything. She could have definitely taken a much different approach, but she felt like, you know, I've come through this. It's an experience. Every experience is an opportunity for growth, and I've got to look at it as such, and I've got a child to think about, and this is the way I'm choosing to live my life. Lord knows I could live it much differently because, you know, we all sometimes want to wallow in the negative. It makes us feel better, you know. But she definitely to take that route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great choice.
I know